Well, hey guys, we're having a really wet March here in California, but I am excited and hopeful for the upcoming motorcycle camping season. I've got a few trips planned. I just booked a solo motorcycle camping trip for spring break. And until then, let's see what adventure we can do for March.
That's right.
Okay, I'd like to welcome Martin and Tim. And they're going to be giving us a little bit of a presentation.
You gotta record it?
Good morning. Martin Lindway with California Highway Patrol. As you might have figured out by my last name, I'm related to the Lindways over there. My dad and my mom, Robert and Eileen Lindway. And this is my partner, Tim Levise. We're both as you might have figured out by the motorcycle boots. We're both motorcycle officers with California Highway Patrol. I've been with the Highway Patrol since 2009, so that's 13, 14 years. I'm a little senior on the earth to Tim, but Tim has got a little more seniority on the Highway Patrol than I do. So he's been on how long?
16 years now.
16 years. I've been on the motorcycle since 2012, so that's 11 years as well. And
I got on the motor in 2009.
So we both work in Contra Costa County. Our office is in Martinez. We've been asked to come in and do a short little presentation about the new laws for 2023. Just to preface, there's nothing super exciting about new laws for 2023. There's nothing that's groundbreaking. But just by way of introduction, you got a presentation on it? Your
Oh, okay.
your
So
magic?
I like opening up with a little bit of a attention grabber. Okay. What I'd like you to do is remember this number. This is a very specific number I want you to remember. The number is 21800. Okay, 21800. And that is the subsection, or excuse me, that is the vehicle code section that allows motorcyclists. Okay, how many times have you pulled up to an intersection? Okay, he's already interested. Pull up to an intersection, nobody's there, and you're at a red light, and you're sitting there waiting and right? 21800 is this vehicle code section that states that when a traffic signal is inoperative, okay, you treat it as a stop sign. Okay. Now, most intersections in California have the sensors in the roadway. Those sensors are designed to pick up motorcycles. Do they work? No. So, say you're sitting at that light, it's red, nobody's there, you stop, you look both ways, and you go. Next thing you know, lights on. Somebody's pulling you over. That is your opportunity to, cordially explain to the officer, sir, I did stop. There was nobody else there. But the sensors in the road did not pick up that motorcycle. And in theory, there the officer should, you're on your way, And that's a good argument, especially if you. Unfortunately, sometimes you might get cited. It happens, but if the officer does cite you, that's a good argument in court. Yes, sir.
Sometimes if you're approaching a light and you're obviously out in the middle of nowhere, and you might think that it might not trigger, a right turn and a U-turn and a right turn works as well.
Yes, yes. You're right. So remember that number. It's 21800. That's the vehicle code section for.
Put it in my notes.
Just ready to go. Put it down.
Specifically, it's 21800 subsection D. D is in David. So just a little attention grabber. And when it comes to these motorcycle events, that's the number one thing. The guy usually open with, "Hey, all right, everybody get ready. I'm going to tell you how to get out of the ticket." And everybody's like, "Oh, here we go. Yeah, 21800. All right, go ahead.
Alright, so just a small side, I was going to tell you how my dad tried to derail my career as a patrolman. So as a young boy, probably less than 10, I remember Dad buying what year with GPZ did you have the red one? Like an 81, beautiful motorcycle. Was it 81?
Was in that area.
Yeah, 81 era Kawasaki GPZ 750. Beautiful motorcycle, small fairing. Wayne Rainey and Eddie Lawson had the same thing. Dad instilled this love of motorcycles for me and my brother. And as I started to get older and and get to become a teenage years, my dad realized that okay, my son doesn't make the best decisions all the time. Maybe a motorcycle is not in his future for longevity on this earth. So in his wisdom, he decided to sell his motorcycles, trying to get my brother and I not to ride motorcycles. Long play choice. So I didn't have a motorcycle all through high school. Went away to the Marine Corps, and first thing to go to the Marine Corps is, hey, went away from mom and dad and buy a motorcycle. Come back home from the Marine Corps, I have a motorcycle, my brother has a motorcycle, my dad's like, what? Hey, I got rid of these things so you guys wouldn't ride them. I'm back on the motorcycle. So it's kind of my fault that you're back on the motorcycle again too. So all this motorcycle goodness that you see in front of you would not be here if not for my dad having a motorcycle and then trying to sabotage my career as well. So, but all worked out. So on to the meat and potatoes of what we're here for. We're talking about the new laws for California. So like I said, there's nothing super exciting for new laws for California. The first one is probably the biggest one as far as affecting people, I guess, would be AB 2147. It says jaywalking is no longer a crime. So, so you can walk into traffic all you'd like, and Tim and I cannot stop you and cite you for that. I mean, there is a caveat in there if we can articulate that it's a hazard to you, immediate hazard, like cars almost ran you over right now, we can kind of talk to you, but it's no longer a crime to jaywalk.
And the background behind that was there was some statistics that were collected, and the interpretation of those statistics was that minorities were being cited for that particular section. So they reworded, is probably the better term, they reworded that section so that you can't just, we as law enforcement officers can't just stop people from just crossing the road outside of a crosswalk. There has to be some kind of safety element to take enforcement action on that particular section. Go ahead.
You go down the road and a 5-year-old runs up between two parked cars and you hit the 5-year-old, who's the fault?
It will be the child. The pedestrians still have a responsibility to enter the roadway safely. But if there can be some articulable evidence that the speed you were traveling was unsafe, then some of the blame will be shifted over.
On that cheery note of running over children.
It happened to a friend of mine in Hollister, and the homeless people ran off, and he was never able to even get their name or anything.
So yeah, we've actually had that on the highway. We've had a sergeant that was responding to a call, and a homeless guy jumped up between cars. Like you said, between cars, and the motorcycle right in front of him. There's no, especially the speeds we travel sometimes. There was no reaction time. He hit the homeless. Went down. I think the homeless guy died too on top of it. It was not great.
So again, there's a safety aspect. So there's still a responsibility for the pedestrian to enter the road safely. That's the jaywalking section is still in the vehicle code, but there has to be, again, that safety aspect. When you get, like, say for example, right here, right in front of us, there's no crosswalk. If somebody were to cross right here, there's no cars coming. That's now.
Even that, but that section also, that wouldn't apply here, because the jaywalking section only applies between controlled intersections. So this section here, you can walk across all as much as you want, but if there is a crosswalk, between controlled intersections where there's a crosswalk, we're required to go in the crosswalk. But we can't contact you unless, like you said, there's a safety factor. Moving on, trying to not take up all of your meeting. So I got like 6 more to go. So the next ones are not also very exciting. The next one's SB 1087. It's catalytic converter theft, which has been a huge problem at our church, and just in state in general. It's a program that's been established that kind of like copper theft was a huge thing maybe 10 years ago, where people were coming into houses and commercial items still a problem, but they put some steps in effect where you have to track who's recycling your catalytic converters. So if it's Joe Wilson's showing up every day with a catalytic converter, they can have somebody to track back and look at where you're getting these things from. Still may not be the solution, but it's moving in the right direction. The next one would be AB 2000. Makes sideshow activity or street racing type stuff illegal in private property. So in 2020, in 2022, if you decided to make a little sideshow in Scenarios Pizza parking lot, technically not illegal because it's on private property. As long as the private property said that it was fine, you had permission to be there, you can do donuts in that private property all you want. This makes that section be legal regardless of where it's at, kind of like DUI. You can't be drunk and driving in the parking lot. We can arrest you for driving. That section applies to private property. Even stop signs in private property don't apply on private property unless there's a sign posted that says, like, so the Costco parking lot, which is private property, they have stop signs. You can run those all day if you want, and we can't enforce that because there's not a posted sign that says that the vehicle code is in effect.
Yeah, it's not an official sign.
So where can we do our donuts?
It's a good question. Well, now you gotta find someplace where we can't find you. So the next one would be SB 1472, which expands the definition of vehicular manslaughter. So if you're to include that sideshow activity. So I don't know if you've seen on the internet, there's lots of videos on the internet right now of people doing sideshows and the spectators getting ran over, and so, or unfortunately the other with people, sideshows are people driving over 100 miles per hour and crashing other people and people dying because of it. Now it allows us to prosecute for vehicle manslaughter with a better definition. Before it was kind of a loose definition of what was considered reckless, and we had to do a lot of articulating to be able to say, okay, your actions caused this death because you made poor decisions and were driving, out of control. The last two sections are ones I think were great. I got really excited about. Probably the best things on the new list of laws. The first one is AB 2949. I got super excited because it said, "Hey, no tolls for veterans." So I thought I was like, "Oh, great! I'm not paying a toll anymore." But then I started reading the section a little more. It's for specific veterans. So it's Pearl Harbor survivors, which I'm not. So specifically.
They still driving?
So the joke is that Dave Holmberg is a Pearl Harbor survivor and fought in the Civil War. So he's actually younger than I am, but he looks a little older than I do. So the requirements are either Purple Heart recipient, which I'm not as well, or certain disabled veterans will not have to pay tolls on any of the bridges or in the fast track lanes. So that'd be pretty cool if you meet those criteria. So if you're anywhere close, you might want to look into that section and see if you can not pay toll anymore. We have to pay a huge amount of money if you go over the toll bridge every day. The last one I thought was kind of cool was SB 837, which is they've removed the $5 fee at the DMV for if you want to get veteran on your driver's license.
Really?
Or your ID card.
When was that effective?
That's January 1st.
Because they just charged my wife about 2 weeks ago for that.
Really? An extra $5 for it?
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, they're not supposed to do that anymore. So you might go ahead and get your $5 back. So
I'll talk to her and make sure I didn't misunderstand.
because there is still the $15 fee that you have to pay every time, or 15 or 25. It goes up all the time. But it used to be 10, now it was 15 last time I was there. Might be higher than that, but there's an additional fee if you want that veteran embedded on your driver's license.
Okay, that's probably what it is.
So that's all the new laws of merit that I saw for 2023, and we will open the floor to question and answer for whatever hands come up quick.
Okay, I'm approaching a stop sign, and I've been riding for years, I can stop, I can come to a dead stop without putting my feet down. Not for a long time, but it's a good complete stop. I keep my feet up, I then go. Am I gonna get a ticket for that?
Can I take that? Okay, so, and what's funny you mentioned that the slow riding is something that we specialize in and we can do as well. Now, coming to a stop is very vague in the sense that you might think you stopped, but somebody who observed might have a different opinion. So yes, physically, can you come to a stop on two wheels? Yes, you can. But in order to kind of prove that point, to make a stamp on that stop, traditionally, we'll look for a foot down on a motorcycle. So just to kind of drill in the point that you're coming to a stop, maybe even just kind of foot off the board, just put it down, pick it back up. That's just a way for us to kind of that's like the point where we notice if a motorcycle's come to a stop or not. It's a very gray area, especially if you're just looking at it. Again, out here, the way that people drive is what's known as a California stop. So, especially if we go to traffic court, if we tell the judge, I didn't see the motorcyclists put a foot down, there was no cessation of movement of the front tire. You know, these are the kinds of terminology that the traffic commissioner likes to hear if we're trying to testify to a stop sign violation. So, yes, can you come to a stop? Physically, can you come to a stop while only on two wheels? Yes, but probably it's safer to just put a foot down just so everybody else knows you're coming to a stop.
So another thing that they want to hear is a weight transfer. So weight transferring off the front tire back on the back tire, and show the cessation of forward motion. There are people that will say, "Oh, I touched the foot down. They're still going 5 miles per hour. But they're dropping. And the law says I touched the foot. There's no section in this, no portion of the section that says the foot has to come to the ground. It's a cessation of forward motion. So if I do the same thing, I don't stop, complete stop, and put my foot down. I'll cop. And like Tim said, that's one thing. One of the skills we try to build on is that balance and being able to stop and hold that bike up. And when we're training new riders, those are things you want to try to work on, is that gray area on the clutch and that balance on the bike.
What about, what's the policy on lane splitting?
It's always comes up.
Lane splitting. Okay, so
It's not against the law.
no, it's not. No, it's not. California is one of the
Certain criteria.
Yes,
Yeah.
California is one of the only states that allows lane splitting, and it's the correct term is lane sharing,
Right.
and that's specific because when you're splitting lanes, the implication is you're between lanes, and that's not the case. In California, you're lane sharing. What that means is you're sharing one lane with another vehicle. Now, it's the passing vehicle's responsibility to make the pass safely. Okay, so when you're in stop and go traffic, and you're coming along, and you get that one car that hates motorcycles. I am not letting that guy. Yep, and he uses up that entire 12 feet. That's his lane. That's his lane. Now, if you find another opening and you go around him, more power to you. But if he's using up all 12 feet, that's his prerogative. That's his prerogative.
Now, certain guideline as far as speed though.
No. Okay, so there used to be a guideline that the Highway Patrol put out as far as lane sharing speeds, and it used to say something like 5 miles an hour within the flow of traffic, and that's not the case. They specifically took that out because it's a case-by-case basis. Some scenarios might allow 5 miles an hour. Some scenarios might allow 15 miles an hour. It really doesn't. Having a hard set rule like 5 miles an hour, because sometimes even 5 miles an hour might not be safe enough.
Sometimes you hear, you're going stop and go here, sport bike just going,
Oh, yeah.
like that.
Oh yeah, it's
Scary, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about crashes, and they happen. Lane sharing crashes, they happen, right? So who's at fault? Who's at fault? Again, it's a case-by-case basis. But there's a general rule of thumb that I like to imply when or understand when I'm investigating traffic sharing accidents. Usually, if the collision occurred to the back of the vehicle of the car, then it's usually the motorcycle's fault. Okay, that makes sense, right? Because then the motorcycle is going too fast. If the damage was to the side of the car, that would imply that the motorcyclist wasn't passing safe enough. So it would be, excuse me. Yeah, let me back up. If the damage is to the back, it's the motorcycle's fault. If the damage was to the side of the car, it's the car's fault. The car, at that point, you're already alongside the car, and it was an unsafe turning movement. Now, is that always the case? No. So what else can we, as investigators, traffic collision investigators, go off of when we're trying to determine fault? Witnesses. Okay? Now picture this. You're going across the Bay Bridge, traffic's at a dead stop, so you're sharing lanes, getting passed through, and then there's unfortunately, you and another vehicle come into contact, okay? He says one thing, You say another thing, so we start stopping, asking we start looking for witnesses, all right? Who are the witnesses that we come in contact with? The 300 people that you just got by while they're sitting in traffic. What do you think they're gonna say? Who's at fault?
Yeah, damn motorcycle.
That's usually the
Right?
case, yeah.
So, take that into consideration when you're sharing lanes, especially in that heavy traffic conditions. You're getting along fine while everybody else is sitting there mad at the world, sitting in traffic. Okay? So even though you're riding in your mind, you think that you're riding safely, everybody else doesn't think so.
Right.
And they're the voices that we have to take into consideration when it's a he said, she said traffic.
It's a hostile witness, I think.
So with that said, sometimes a lot of guys now, it's been much more common in the last 10 years or so, is people with GoPros or some type of dash camera.
Oh, yeah.
And those work in your favor a lot of times because they witnesses that all these witnesses that don't like motorcycles are saying, hey, he's going 400 miles per hour splitting lanes, and he's going like 10 miles an hour. It was totally not the motorcycle's fault. So that unbiased witnesses, it also can work against you if it does show that you were going 400 miles per hour as you're splitting lanes. So, but it is unbiased witness.
Yeah. On that note with the dash cams, I know that the newer cars like the Teslas and whatnot, they have the cameras all around. I cannot stress enough how important I believe those dash cameras are on motorcycles. Some guys use GoPros now or some kind of recording event. I would hope that most of you riders here ride safely and defensively. So that in itself will show, if you're involved in, unfortunately, an accident, it will show that your riding was not, what you say it is. In my personal cars, I have dash cameras set up, and they're cheap. Get them on eBay, Amazon. They're less than $100. They're invaluable. I don't know how many traffic collisions that the one person said something, the other person said something else, it didn't make sense, and then there was dash cam, said something totally different. Right? So I like to put that out there. Dash cams, I love them.
Because people are terrible witnesses. Especially in traumatic incidents, your memory is shaded a certain way, and sometimes not very accurate. So, like you said, a lot of times we get statements of things that make no sense, and then you get the video footage and kind of paints that clear picture.
I believe you were asking about riding in the rain. Do many of you ride in the rain, or sometimes you get caught in the rain?
Oh, yeah.
Right? You weren't intending it, but sometimes it happens. Riding practices in the rain. One of the important things is remember the tires on these cars and the suspension are designed to be comfortable, but not necessarily performance oriented. By comfortable, I mean they're very soft and supple, right? So it's easy on the body, it's easy on your back. But unfortunately, it does not do a very good job of holding traction, especially in road traffic conditions. And we've experienced that.
Yeah.
If you let out that clutch a little too quickly in the rain, the back end starts getting a little squirrely on you. It happens. The main thing is smoothness. How smooth your throttle applications are, how smooth your braking applications are. Everything has to be smooth. That's the number one thing. The more changes you make to the application or taking away of power as much as possible straight up and down, because if you start doing that with some lean angle, that just magnifies the problem. Another thing that we like to practice is riding in a wheel pattern. I don't know, Martin might have said this to some of you before, but basically you want to ride where the other vehicle's tires are. So the car in front of you want to be right behind his left set of wheels or his right set of wheels, because the car in front of you is already pushing the water out of the way, right? So you want to stay either on the left side of the road where his tires were, or the right side of the road. Now, coming to a stop at intersections, like we were just talking about a stop sign, a stop light, putting your foot down. We like to practice always putting the outside foot down. Okay, so what that means is if you're on the left wheel track, the left side of the lane, you're putting your left foot down. Not the right side, because what's in the middle of the road? All the oil and grime and dirt, right? So Have any of you ever put your foot down on the dirt? We call it the dirty side. Put your foot down, it slips right underneath you, and next thing you know, you're trying to fight to keep that bike up, right? Yep. So we like to train to always put the outside foot down. It's always one foot. It's always one foot. Anything else going on?
And if you're fortunate to have a BMW, your bike has rain mode, right? So if you have rain mode, use it. You know, I am wait for the day to have rain mode on my work bike.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
On that section of highway between Vallejo and Sonoma Raceway, it's notorious for bad traffic. Guys out being single lane on either side of that median. And it's so hard for us with the big twins, and especially in the summer months when we heat up and stuff. How much wiggle room would an officer give it for riding the shoulder?
So yeah, so that kind of goes off the segue of lane splitting. So lane splitting is allowed within the lane, so you can have to be within the lane. If you're on the shoulder, that's not lane splitting. So yeah, riding on the shoulder is technically illegal, depending on who you got and as far as an officer. If it was one of us, it might be a little more sympathetic to, okay, you've got a big V-twin, my bike's overheating. We may be a little more, like, technically you're outside of the law. We have a friend of ours who's not a police officer who got stopped doing probably triple digits on the shoulder. And
the airplane was not happy. The airplane pilot was not happy.
Called in some friends and they stopped on him. But yeah, on the shoulder is technically illegal. If you can pass on the right shoulder, within the lane, you can share that one lane, but as soon as you cross that white line, you're no longer sharing the lane, you're on the shoulder, which is a second pass on the right shoulder.
And if there's no white line, no fog line, then you can share that portion of the lane.
Yeah, if there's no fog line, then that's still part of the lane.
That's all part of the roadway at that point.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna come back to full stop for a second. 4 bikes slow to a stop sign, 2x2. They all make a complete stop. Can they all take off together, or does the first 2 have to go and the second 2 have to wait?
Actually, it's supposed to be one vehicle per cycle. Now, is that?
It's not I don't need a cycle, I just need a stop sign.
Yes, included with stop sign. So if there's.
If they're right next to each other.
Yeah, because technically, you can lane share, but it's only supposed to be one. It's supposed to be one vehicle at a time that proceeds through. Now, for us motorcyclists, especially when you're riding in a big group,
Yeah,
you know, even when we ride in formation, we'll ride as one unit. But is that?
So we go by the spirit of the law, letter of the law.
There you go.
So that's a lot of us. Our day-to-day life is monitored by spirit of the law versus letter of the law. Okay, the letter of the law says every single motorcycle has to stop, individual vehicle, make an individual stop and go. Spirit of the law is to be able to go that intersection safely in a normal manner where nobody dies and you get a big wreck. So we're kind of dictated by spirit of law. But some officers, so this is why it gets really questionable. Some officers' opinion of spirit of law is definitely different than ours. And just like, so in the Marine Corps, there's a saying that there's a 10% in every organization, no matter how elite, that has no business being that organization. So whether it be the Navy SEALs, NASA, or whatever, there's 10% in that organization that should not be in that profession. So plumbers, there's 10% of plumbers that should be plumbers. And the same with us. So there's 10% of us that probably shouldn't be police officers and don't have the best judgment. So in that section, if we were sitting at this intersection right here and I just happened to stop and work on some notes and you guys rolled through, I would be like, okay, that guy stopped and that guy stopped, that guy. And as long as you guys come through the intersection safely, but that's not, when we give people advice, we always kind of want to get that caveat. You may get that 10% that stops you next week, as you come out of there. Unfortunately, we do work with guys. Our office is actually fairly good. I think we have probably less than that 10%. But
there are those handful that would cite you for doing the 68 and a 65. Yeah. They're out there. And are they technically wrong? No. And in their mind, they're doing everything right. But it's what he said. There's that 10% that have a different perspective.
Is there a certain quota that?
That's another great question that always comes up is, hey, we have a quota for a certain number of tickets. So our profession, fortunately, we get a lot of leniency as far as supervision. So when we go our day looks like. We show up for briefing. Tim and I ride in the office. We get the privilege of taking our motorcycles home. Privilege enough, but we're also working on the way home and to work. But when we get to the office, we do what's called briefing, where they hand out your assignments for the day. Just like in Chips. You watch Chips in the 80s, where they're sitting there in that room. Our room looks exactly like Chips did.
It's probably the same room.
Probably is the same exact furniture. They hand out. So, and we'll just segue to later. We often get claim to be Poncherello and John Baker. I'm Poncherello and he's John Baker. But, so we do those. If you thought he was Ponch, you're wrong. So you get handed out our beats, and then after that, it's pretty much a free-for-all. We can do what we want until there's a call for a service. So if there's somebody crashes, then we're required to go to that call. But between those times, we get to do whatever we want. So if you're into looking for guns, or you're looking for dope, or impaired drivers, or you're like speeding, or there's guys that like mechanical violations. Hey, that guy doesn't have gloves in the glove box. I'm stopping that guy. So we have a lot of freedom for what we do. So the quota thing is kind of just, we have to justify our work day. So if you don't write tickets, what did you do that whole day? So, okay, I took a lot of crashes, or I pulled some cats out of trees, or I did X, Y, Z. So, but there is no hard set number that you have to write X number of tickets. But there is some justification for your workload that you did something that day. Right? Towards the end of the month and you haven't done anything, you might be a little more heavy-handed.
We're on our monthly chapter ride. We just left Denny's in Cordelia, and we just crossed over into Napa County, doing a great ride on a local back road. I've done this one many times. Definitely one of my favorite. A lot of nice turns to it. We're going to work our way up to Capay Valley, have lunch at Road Trip Cafe. Just having good weather, clear sky, a little bit of water on the road from all the recent rains, but other than that, just really enjoying a good ride. Bit of a mudslide there, I guess, that they had cleaned up. But I think now it's time to just turn up some music and enjoy this road. Thanks for watching, and until next month, be safe and stay blessed.